Hello, class. This is Mani, Liberty University, class of American Revolution. We were tasked on choosing a location that has a huge significance on the American Revolution, and I went ahead and chose the Battle of Tearcoat Swamp, which took place in South Carolina after the fall of Charleston, and took place between the Patriot militia and the Loyalists living in South Carolina. The militia were led by Francis Marion, known as the Swamp Fox, and I believe this battle, even though it was a small battle, around 150 American militia, but I believe it had a huge significance because it led to basically the British leaving South Carolina and chasing the American troops to Virginia. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you. When it comes to the legend of the Swamp Fox, there's many battles and locations that comes to mind. But to understand the importance of these locations, one needs to look at the impact Francis Marion had on South Carolina. The Battle of Tearcoat Swamp was between American militia forces and Loyalist British militia led by Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Tynes in the swamps of Clarendon County, South Carolina. After the disaster in Battle of Camden and fall of Charleston, the American forces had no chance but to head up north. The British, however, had plans to win the war from the south, yet an American lieutenant colonel was born in 1732 to French Huguenot family in the name of Francis Marion. Marion and his militia forces' contribution to stopping the British led to the American independence and also shaped the future of combat and guerrilla warfare. The best example of this is at Battle of Tearcoat Swamp. Marion wanted to inflict damage on the British troops and supply, which is why he never stayed at one place or one camp. He operated on the move and from behind trees and in swamps. His militia were anywhere from 70 to 150 men, including mostly farmers and free slaves. On October 24, 1780, the day of the Battle of Tearcoat Swamp, he had gathered 152 militia from around the area of Britain Neck. Lieutenant Colonel Tarleton was waiting a shipment of supplies from Camden, led by Loyalist Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Tynes. Tynes had already been warned by Tarleton, having issues catching Marion, the Swamp Fox himself, about Marion and his militia group. Tynes had set up camp between Tearcoat Swamp and Black River, thinking that there is no way the militia can attack him at that location. But he was wrong. Marion, with farmers and slave militia, decided to attack the British Loyalists a little past midnight by quietly crossing the river when most of the British were asleep and surrounding the Loyalists. Earlier, he had won another Battle of Black Mingo, using the same fox-like tactics. And this time it all was working again. Marion fired as all the militia closed in on the Loyalists, yelling and firing on the British. Later that morning, the Patriot militia had won, and they had 0 killed. The Loyalists, however, had 23 captured, 14 wounded, and 6 killed. Following the Battle of Tearcoat Swamp, Lord Cornwallis sent troops to Charleston to cover the lines along the river, and had Tarleton do whatever it takes to capture the Swamp Fox. American independence was won in Yorktown, Virginia, but it's important to note Cornwallis was coming from South Carolina, and the Battle of Tearcoat Swamp, however small, was a huge moral booster for the American troops. The Battle of Tearcoat Swamp also led to the end of the Loyalist movement in Salem, South Carolina, would make it a valuable area in the American Revolution, which I believe needs more recognition and preservation. It's not only historically so significant, it would also benefit from wildlife preservation. A visit will capture the essence of guerrilla warfare led by the swamp fox himself.